Hey everybody, it's Emily at Audiobooks, and today I'm going to be discussing tips for homeschooling when you are chronically ill. Life can sometimes be unpredictable. You could have a great homeschool routine, you could have the perfect curriculum for your family, homemade meals every night of the week, and then, boom, disaster strikes. I've had digestive issues my entire life. In my 20s, I convinced a doctor to run some tests, and basically I was told I have a sensitive stomach, so be friends with Imodium. So I was. I got to a point where Imodium and Advil were like candy, and I just took them every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, to just deal with things. And that worked for a while. Then in 2017, on Christmas Day, I felt sick. And it didn't get better. I took my usual cocktail of Imodium and Advil, and that did nothing. And it got worse and worse until 2 days later, I ended up in the emergency room. And they ran a bunch of tests, and this time I got a diagnosis. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And that was just absolute sheer relief to know what was causing all these problems, finally. And it was weeks before I fully recovered. And then I had to make so many adjustments to my life. New meds, new diet. Sometimes I just had to accept I was going to be sick and there was nothing I could do about it because Imodium and Advil, the things that I'd always clung to fix all my problems, were the things that were probably causing a lot of my problems. It was a huge transition. But in addition to that big life change, I had another shift to deal with. How is this going to affect our homeschool? Some days I was perfectly fine and we could carry on as usual. But then there were days where I basically lived in the bathroom and the rest of the time I was too exhausted to get off the couch. How does one homeschool in that kind of situation? I'm going to share some tips that have helped me in our homeschooling and in my life to adjust to this weird thing where you homeschool while ill. The first tip I want to share is maybe the most obvious. Let go of your expectations. Like all of us, we have these idealizations of what homeschooling should look like, and it's not going to look like that anymore. We have to adjust our expectations of what our days are going to be like. For example, I have to accept that my house is going to be messy because if I clean the house, that's my energy for the day and I don't have anything left to give to anything else. So my house will be clean, but we can't homeschool and I certainly can't cook too, so I have to give up something. So I've accepted the messy house. I use my crock pot a ton in the first year or two of adjustment because it was so much easier to just throw some stuff in the crock pot in the morning and have dinner be completely ready at dinner time in the evening without me having to do much. Were they gourmet meals? Not really. I actually don't much like cooking with a crock pot because I feel like that's just not ideal, but letting go of expectations. I had my kids start picking up some of the slack around the house. My husband took on laundry. You gotta let go of things and delegate and have other people help out whenever they can. Maybe your kids are still young and that's down the road, but if you've got older kids, have them help out. The big thing is to pick your battles. Clean carpet or grammar lessons. Some days the carpet wins, some days it's grammar. Tip number 2. Screens are not your enemy. Screens are going to become your new best friend. There seems to be a faction of homeschoolers who absolutely abhor any kind of technology. And I don't get that. That's not how we do things here. And it never was. Like, I don't think I ever fell into the no screen camp. But also, I know that it's ideal to try to regulate that, and we do, but I'm not against screens, and when you are chronically ill, Sometimes screens are a lifesaver. Maybe on a good day, I can find some other things for us to do. We can play board games, we can do crafts, all the things to keep your kids entertained away from screens, maybe. But honestly, most days I don't have the energy for that, and maybe you don't either. And you shouldn't be beating yourself up about it. There are things to do on a screen that are educational. Like, they're not all just mindless gaming. There's lots of things. My daughter does digital art and she can spend hours drawing pictures on her tablet. Minecraft can sometimes be mindless, but often there's stuff going on there that is technically educational. There's great television programming you could have on, and it's not all bad. We are raising children in such a different world than we were raised in that I think sometimes we want to go back to that, but that's not the world they're going to be going into. And I don't know what things will look like in 10 years, in 15 years, and even 5 years. So, like, why hinder them by preventing them from using the technology that might be beneficial to them in a future workforce? Like, I don't know what they'll need for the future. So why make it harder for them by taking away the technology that they might need? That's a whole other conversation, but all that to say, screen time is necessary when you are chronically ill and you need things for your kids to do that allow you to rest. Tip number 3, tagging on to that last tip, sort of, audiobooks are fantastic. It is a fantastic resource for a tired, ill homeschooling parent. This is really the first year that I've done audiobooks in our homeschooling. I used to be very uptight when my kids were younger that I had to do the reading. And it didn't help that they also insisted that I had to do the reading. So I did, and I read for hours. But fairly recently, that's not been an option. This year has been terrible for me, to be honest, health-wise, and I've had to have a lot of dental work, and that has made it very, very challenging to get all the reading done that I want to do, that I feel like we should be doing. So, welcome audiobooks. They have been a lifesaver for us, and I'm eternally grateful that they exist. Because I can't read for hours at a time right now. I have a flipper appliance in my mouth that makes it challenging to talk for long periods of time. It's uncomfortable. So we'll put on an audiobook and listen to our read aloud instead of me reading it. I'll do some reading, of course. I can't find audiobooks for everything, but it's so much easier when I have the option of putting on an audiobook instead of having to do all of that myself. Those have been a huge benefit to our homeschool this year. I have discovered Scribd, which is a fantastic resource. I'll link down below. I have absolutely no affiliation with them. I get nothing out of this besides sharing a resource with you guys that I think is great. But I love that I can use their service, and I've been able to find almost everything I've searched for our audiobook purposes. So I'll leave a link down below for you to check out. Finally, I have a bonus tip. And this one can be tricky depending on your children's ages, but if they're a little bit older, getting them to work on schoolwork independently as much as possible has been just huge. My daughter is 12, and so she's at an age now where I can sort of start handing things off to her more frequently. But even just one subject a day can be huge to have them do independently. It can go a long way towards making your routine go more smoothly. On a really bad day, I'll strip school down to the absolute bare minimum. We'll listen to our audiobook, we'll do a math lesson, we'll do a spelling and or writing lesson, and then she reads independently, and that's it. I call it a day. We're good. And that's really like the absolute bare minimum for me. And that spelling and writing lesson are workbooks. I have never really been a huge fan of workbooks, but there is a time and a place where they become beneficial. And if you're a chronically ill homeschooling parent, workbooks can be fantastic resources. I wouldn't use them for everything, but I love to use them for spelling, for writing, for things that, like, I can kind of hand these books to my kid and she can just go do it and get it done. She does her assignment, she hands it back to me, I check over her work, we talk about anything she might have missed or done wrong, or go over the lesson one more time to review it, and that's it. It's so much easier. Of course, I'll do something more formal when I have the energy to do so, but on a day where I don't, workbooks are magic. So try to find ways for your child to have some independent work in their day. Homeschooling is always hard, but it can feel impossible when you're chronically ill. But having the right tools in place can help you keep going on those bad days. I hope you found this video to be helpful. What is your best tip for getting through a homeschool day when you're in a rough patch? I'd love you to share your advice down below in the comments, and we can chat about it. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it and you want to see more content like this, please remember to like and subscribe. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.